Alright, so boom, in the wake of what's transpiring with Robert Kraft and the whole soliciting of the prostitution and now sex slavery and all the other information coming out, I took a couple of hours to really dive deep into the details of what was transpiring. Because the first video I did, it was just, I heard soliciting a prostitute, Robert Kraft. None of the details really came out yet because it was a hot sort of story. So nobody really knew, the dealings with the sex slavery and the behind the scenes sort of thing. However, my thoughts on Robert Kraft, the person, and what transpired, nothing has changed, because there's a couple of things that have to be taken into consideration. Because when we talk about what happens with sex slavery, it's a complete terrible sort of situation. Because I looked at it as if this was the case. If the ladies were being pimped and that was what was happening, and Robert Kraft knew that ahead of time, and he still acted upon what was happening, engaging in coitus with the ladies or engaging with a fellatio and receiving an old-fashioned, then he would be a scumbag. However, in the case of what we have, the ladies that he did engage in the hand jobs and the fellatio with, they actually weren't part of the sex slavery ring. All right, those two just so happened to still do favors, but they were not, riddled in the sex slavery back in China and all this stuff that's going on. Now, here's my thing with Robert Kraft, because a lot of people get messages misconstrued. Because when you hear, okay, some of the ladies who are in there are sex slaves, you just assume on the surface that the individuals who went in there and paid for different acts were aware of what was happening. But all the sex slavery is like behind the scenes. Look at it like this. When I was in college, when I had free time in between classes or after practice or even before practice, I would have, opportunity to go and binge watch shows. When I wasn't watching anime or watching other shows, I remember a girl who I used to engage in, fornication with. She used to watch a show on Lifetime called The Client List. It starred Jennifer Love Hewitt. And in this show, they worked as, a masseuse, massage therapist, but they figured out a way to make a little bit more money when they engaged in a little bit of, special favors at the end and give the brothers a happy ending. So look at it like this. If I'm a person who walks into a massage parlor, I go into a spa, I go and I get my massage, all of a sudden they say, hey, for $50 more, I can give you an old fashioned, or for $50 more, I can turn your appendage into a lollipop and perhaps blow you. So if you say, hey, all right, I'll go through with it, no problem, no harm, no foul, and you go through with it, if you were unaware that this person who's doing it was being forced, can you really, hold that person who went through and paid for it accountable to where they are responsible for what's happening, behind the scenes? That got nothing to do with them. Should you be soliciting a prostitute? I personally believe you shouldn't, although I do believe prostitution should be legal. Only reason why it's a huge problem is because you can't tax it. But I don't look at somebody like Robert Kraft or somebody who goes and they go and pay for sex. At least they go to a parlor and they go into like a spa sort of situation. Unless they knew what was going on behind the scenes, then we can chastise them. If they didn't know, you could just say, hey, you out there paying for sex when you really don't have to. That's the only thing that I see here. Because in every single article that I've read, in every single video that I've read, in all the different reports, they all talk about what was happening in the parlor, how it was under investigation for 6 months and all the other stuff. But nobody says if Robert Kraft was aware that they had sex slaves that were involved there. They say that the police was aware, but if the police are aware but Robert Kraft doesn't know, can we really sit here and chastise him as if he knew? That's the only thing. All right, now if he did know, then by all means, I will chastise him as well. But if he didn't, I'm not going to sit here and hold you responsible as if you're supposed to know this information. Out of sight, out of mind. That's the way I look at it. Now, granted, with the sex slavery and everything behind the scenes and with this going on, it's terrible. All right? It's not good. Okay, a lot of people, I love to use the word harlot, but the way that I use harlot, it's used with no emotional connection to it. Similar to how people use the N-word, similar to how women and gay men like to throw around bitch and stuff like that, where it's not, I'm not calling you a female dog, I'm not using it in a derogatory manner. I use it so loosely, a harlot that is, to where it's, I can call my mother a harlot, but I don't mean to call her a harlot, although I don't, because that's kind of weird. I don't like the way that sounds coming out. Hey mom, how you doing? What's going on, harlot? No, it's kind of weird. You wouldn't sound good. So now if her name was Harriet, then you could probably play it off. Now, I didn't mean to say harlot, I meant to say Harriet, but her name's not Harriet. Is she starring in Family Matters? What are we talking about? Robert Kraft. So yeah. the way I see it, until more details come out and we really dive deep into the situation, I'm still gonna, you know, watch from afar. A lot of people talk about the woke individual saying, hey, you gotta understand, you know, this man was rubbing shoulders with these black celebrities and all of a sudden telling them different things about equity and what to do with their money and investing in businesses. All of a sudden now, 6 months down the line, he wearing the Champions chain, a Meek Mill, he's rolling with those guys, and bam, now they talk about prostitution. They always trying to pin this on a black man. My man, it's not that deep. Don't make it about race. That's not what's going on right here. All right, but in this case, let's just wait for more details to come out. It's unfortunate that there's a sex slave sort of situation still going on, but this is prevalent over the globe, around the globe, as I'm beginning to sweat in here. So yeah, let's just wait for more details. But in the case of Robert Kraft, I still stand where I do, saying that, you know, he just went in there and he got a little bit silly and wet his willy. That's pretty much it. Yeah.